Good
Hi,
morning.
hi, hi. Welcome. This is so fun. I'm loving getting
Hi.
caught up with you both. Avi and Angela.
Good to be
Hi.
back.
Good to be back for our second episode.
Yeah, so let's recap of where we are at with everybody. Last time we left you, Angela, that you were kind of dating this guy, weren't sure, and you were going to start splitting the, or not splitting the meal, like trading off maybe paying for the meal.
Yes, I recall that vividly. So that guy that I was dating, I did decide to take the challenge and do something outside of my comfort zone. And I paid for the meal, and he was very anxious. He even said the words. He's like, I'm feeling very anxious right now that you are going to cover the bill. And I was just like, well, it's fine. Like, I want to do this. It's not a big deal. And he responded with, usually I'm the one paying or I'm splitting it with someone. So thank you so much. And so he was really grateful about it. And I mean, that guy, he was great, but it just didn't work out. The chemistry wasn't there at the end of the day. I
Okay.
know. But I had this discussion with that other guy that I met on the run. And he was like, yeah, we should split things. We should, alternate between this and that. And so I didn't think we were on a date. I thought it was just like some friend run, whatever.
You were going to go on a run with him that day.
Yeah. So I went on a run with him, and then I'm so glad you remember this because I'm forgetting where we were. So
Forget
yeah,
it. We're like in a cliffhanger.
I know, right? So I did go on the run with him. And then at the end of it, I was the one that was hungry. I was like, oh, do you want to join me for a bite to eat? And he was like, sure. And then I paid for the meal. And then, okay, so I've been seeing this guy that I paid for his meal. And we haven't, like, it's been like a month and a half now. Been seeing him, trying to figure out where things are going. Every time I try to bring up a serious topic, he doesn't really have anything to say about it. So I was like, all right, like this is what I want, X, Y, and Z. I'm looking for a long-term relationship, blah, blah, blah. He's like, well, I don't really know what I'm looking for. And I was like, okay. So yeah. Anyways, at one point or another, I think the splitting of the bill actually divided us a little bit because I'm like, he's not very chivalrous. He's not doing like anything like, out of the ordinary. It doesn't even feel like dating. It feels like friends with benefits at this point. The benefit of my company, that is. And so I was like, you know what? Like, so this week was actually a test. It was a big test. So I would love to hear your guys' opinion on this. And when I said this scenario to two of my girlfriends, they said the same words. I did not use the words at all when I described the situation. So I'm just curious if you guys will say the same thing. So we were supposed to meet up on Sunday. He was like, oh, well, I can't because I'm like tired. I'm driving back and I'm stuck in traffic. I'm exhausted, blah, blah. I'm like, all right, no worries. So your form of punishment is going to be to plan the next date. So I just left it broad. I'm like, let's see what a date means to you. And I know dates mean different things for different people. so,
Sounds like something I would say.
Exactly. So I'm like, let's see what happens. Let's see if what he plans for Thursday. And so I was like, let's plan that out. And so he shoots me a text message Wednesday, and I'm trying to reiterate exactly quotation. So there's nothing added, nothing subtracted. I'm going to say it in a very plain tone, and you guys can take it as it is. So I was looking into making a reservation at Top Golf, but it's a bit expensive. Can we do miniature golf instead? Am I not worth Top Golf, top dollar? What the hell's going on here? And I was just like, sure, let's do miniature golf. Okay, well, let's just pause there and let's get some feedback on that situation.
Yeah, well, how do you feel about mini golf, first of all?
First of all, I was just like, didn't sound terrible. I'm like, okay. I think what bothered me was the fact that he mentioned the price, like it was a bit expensive. Like if you mentioned any other thing, like, I can't hear you very well in the Top Golf scene because, people are drinking and it's really loud, mini golf might be more appropriate. I'd be like, okay, that's totally fine. But that's not what was mentioned here. And I even brought this up to my mom and she's like, miniature golf, what are you, 12? She's like, that's for kids. That's ridiculous. You should go out for a nice dinner. That's what about, that's like dating world for a 30-something-year-old. I was like, oh, well, mama says that. And then I called my sister on the other hand, and she's like, oh, miniature golf, I love it. It's the best. I was like, what? Like,
Top
so
golf is way more fun. Top golf is, yeah.
Well, I think his mistake was even mentioning Top Golf at all.
Yeah.
Why mention Top Golf?
yeah. So at
Like, if he
dinner,
wants to do if he wants to do Top Golf, do Top Golf, and he doesn't, just do mini golf and just say, hey, I've got a plan for doing mini golf and dinner. Yeah, exactly, mini
Yeah.
golf and dinner, and that's your date. And you're like, okay.
You would have never known what you would have lost out on.
mhm,
Yeah.
yeah. So I did go with him to miniature golf. And I think at that point I was like really tense. I'm like, I'm just gonna break things off. If he makes me split this and pay for half of this, I'm just calling it off at that point. He didn't. So I gave him like a little extra time. And I'm like, all right. So, and he's like, do you want to do dinner? I'm like, yeah, let's do dinner. So did dinner. We didn't split that. He paid for that. I was like, okay, good. So now he has like a one. At first, I was going to be generous and do 2-week grace period, but he just keeps like pushing him. He keeps like putting his foot in his own mouth. So I'm giving him like a 1-week grace period at this point, because I hung out with him like, what was it, yesterday, and we were going to go to check out this place to go. There's supposed to be a meteor shower at Perseid. This like it's supposed to be happening now till like I think the end of August. And I'm into, constellations and stars. I'm like, oh, perfect opportunity to watch them shooting stars. I was like, and so he actually did some research to like find out, a place to go watch it. And we went on a hike there yesterday. But as soon as I got there, he was like, oh, so are you driving or am I driving? I just drove to his house, which is like 20 minutes north. It's not a big deal, but it's another 20 minutes north to where we're going. I'm like, you're driving. Duh. Like, and then he was like talking about this backpacking trip. He's like, yeah, there's this backpacking trip, we're going to leave Friday and then come back Sunday. I'm like, yeah, I work till 6:30. And he's like, yeah, maybe you could drive there. I was like drive your car. He's like, no, like your car. I was like, what?
Drive separately or drive with you guys? Like
No, he said no, because he even said I could take a nap while you drive, even though I work a 10-hour shift. And I was like, seriously?
No, I don't like this.
I don't like this either. But I
like
want to go see some shooting stars. So I'll go hang out with him. And I don't want to get eaten by mountain lions. So so I'll give him till Wednesday. And then at that point, be like, I'm not feeling this. Okay, bye.
I do wonder what the rest of that story is. Why does he assume that that's an acceptable option?
I don't know if he's just like used to people just doing stuff for him because he's the youngest of 3 kids, and he seems like the most immature one for sure, which is why I have fun with him. But then like he's just like I don't know, expects things from people.
So do you think like how you start a date, how you start a relationship is the precedence for how a relationship is going to go?
That's a good question. Why don't you answer that, Avi?
I think how I started a date is the precedent. Like what it was like a first date or just a date in
Do you
general?
think if Angela didn't offer to pay for the first meal, that would have changed the dynamics of everything?
It wasn't the first meal. It was a meal.
It was it kind of was. He probably thought it was a date.
I mean, it was a half date meal.
Yeah.
Hadn't you already gone on dates with a few dates with him before then?
No.
Okay. I don't think that necessarily sets a precedent. I think that, it's a nice thing to do, a nice thing to offer, and you did that. And he can take that and then move forward with it being next time he's got to step it up. So
I think it really depends on the person, because that's really nice, Avi, but I don't think that's what happened here. I think there was a definite precedent thing.
Well, he could do that.
I was like, oh, well, she's down for splitting things. Hey, isn't it your turn? And then a problem too is I get anxious when like the bill comes and one of us doesn't have a card out already. Like, so as soon as the bill comes, if he doesn't have his card out and ready, I feel anxious. And I'm like, all right, here, I'll pay for it. So I ended up paying for like 2 more meals than he did. Because
it seems like a
whole
conversation needs to
splitting thing.
happen.
I
Yeah.
think the conversation needs to happen. I think this is also something that maybe we need a change in this whole order of things.
Also, I think we're missing some information there. Then that was pretty key information that you paid for 2 additional meals, beyond that first one. So it wasn't just the first one.
I know. It was the first one, the second one because he drove, and then he paid for the third one, and then I paid for the fourth one, and then he paid on the fifth one.
Okay. I think it's just this person.
Yeah, and I don't know if like you should, I mean, maybe it is a precedent. I mean, this is something to think about and just, figure it out. But like, I mean, maybe having the guy lead and, take control of the date and everything, and then, laying down what your expectations are right away. It's almost like in school, right? Like when the teachers are like really, really strict in school, you don't ever cross them, and then they get more relaxed as time goes on. They lay down the ground rules.
And then you become a rebel. I think the thing is, who invited who on the date? Did he invite you on a date?
That's a good question. I honestly don't remember. I think that
Who used the word date?
nobody used the word date. I used the word date on the time I wanted it to be a date, which was on a Thursday.
So it is more of just like a casual Chipotle situation.
And it seems like Chipotle all the way. And sometimes not even Chipotle. Sometimes it's ramen now.
I've had many friends complain to me about this, but I think the word date needs to be used at some point to indicate whether this is an intention to be dating or if it's just friends with the benefit of your company.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know, like I really want to go see some shooting stars, but then I think after that I'm gonna be like, hey, I'm just not feeling this.
Friends with the benefits of his company, keep you from getting eaten alive.
Yeah,
so that's a useful thing.
Oh, yeah, no, I think maybe since it sounds like you've already kind of checked out of this relationship, for the next one, allowing him to pay for the meal originally. So now you're totally out of it. You're gonna just have to sit there awkwardly, be like, okay,
yeah, it's something I have to deal with. I know my limitations as a person.
Yeah, but I also think like, again, you should push him to say whether it's a date or not when you go for drinks or something like that.
That's the one benefit behind, I feel like, online dating. It's a date because we're both here to be on a date.
Yeah.
So that is a pro to this.
If I think in person real life, like it depends on how they ask. Like if the person's like, hey, can I take you out for drinks sometime? That's a date. If they say, do you want to meet up for coffee? That's like, well, I don't know. That could be a date or not. You might need some clarification.
That's true. I've been in that situation too.
If they say, do you want to meet and go for a run? I don't know.
If I was the one that proposed the run. He wanted to do like a hike.
If you want to go for a run or a hike, and then we'll go get some dinner, some breakfast afterwards or lunch, maybe that's a date.
I'm getting hungry with all these meal ideas.
All right, I gotta switch it over to Avi real quick. Where's your status right now? Because last time we left you were just moving in with Talia, and you guys were like literally that day you're moving in together pretty much.
So she moved in a few weeks ago, I guess now more than a month ago, but it's gone by really quickly. And we've been busy. It's been a lot to unpack and move and, get rid of duplicates of things. It's a lot of stuff to do. And we built this Murphy bed that's right behind me, which is pretty cool. That was a challenge. It's one of the biggest assembly projects I've had to do. And I don't know, there's just been a lot of things to sort of figure out. We had an organizing maniac come through a few weeks ago to organize some of our key spaces and help encourage some purging of things, particularly my things.
I was gonna say, I think that's a good idea to have a third party come in and do that together. So then that way you guys don't get into too big of arguments. It's kind of just like somebody else creating a space for both of you. I
think that's true, but I also think it depends on the people involved. You can have people that are still very attached to certain items and the other person is not, and that could still be kind of a thing. But I think one of the nice things about this organizing maniac was she was very good about like helping us determine whether we needed something or not. For example, she had Talia try on her shoes, like, are they still comfortable? Do they still fit? She hasn't used them in a long time because she's not going to work anymore. And so Talia tried them on and realized that no, these are not comfortable anymore and she doesn't really want to wear them. And for me, there was things like, she's like, the maniac was like, you have space for these things. You can hold on to it if you want to, but you don't have to. And so I had to think through a lot of those things, whether I wanted to use the space I have with these things or not.
That sounds like so much fun. It's like adopting a sister for a day. My sister would be like, do you really want this? Like, can we just throw it out, or can we switch?
I think it's probably a good thing for everybody to go through every so often.
Really like the idea though, what Ariel said, especially if you're moving in together and it's your first time. It kind of takes off the tension, and instead of it being directed to one person or the other, there's like a medium.
Mhm.
So it's like, instead of it being like a fire and fire situation, there's a little bit of water in between. So it's like, so even if you are attached to the item, the person that's asking you, do you want to keep this, is not someone that you're going to be in a relationship seeing again. It's someone else that's like,
That's
so
true.
10 years down there, you made me throw out that thing. What? No, it was that
No, I
lady.
didn't.
Remember?
It was the organizing maniac. She's a maniac.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think it helps make that space more, because she moved into your house. It makes it more feel like a little bit her house too, because it's not exactly things of how like you had it. Now it's totally mixed up into things where both you guys now have it.
Right. And to be fair, there's a good system that she put in place for a lot of things. She organized all my tools. I feel great about them now. It's so easy to find what I'm looking for. And the pantry looks great. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that was good, and it would be good to do even if you lived by yourself. So that's
This
also
podcast
some
episode was sponsored by Organizing Maniac.
right. If you live in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, check out Organizing Maniacs. Contact me for a referral code.
Awesome. Good. Well, I'm glad it's going good. And I think that's such a great idea that you guys did together.
We've been doing some other fun things. I started to get Talia into bike riding. And so she bought a bike last weekend, which was really exciting. And we've taken it out, and she got a bike lock, and we went on a little bike ride to the new Amazon Go grocery yesterday, which is the one where you can walk in, put stuff in your bag and walk out. You don't have to pay, don't have to go through the cash register. So
I got excited. I thought you were going to say
experience.
it's the one where you can bring your bike in.
Oh.
I was like, oh, that's cool.
Bike through grocery.
Now.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, no, so doing more things like that has been fun.
Good. I'm glad you're enjoying living together. It's good.
Yeah.
It's nice to hear.
What's going on in your life?
We're going to move on, because I had an experience that happened to me actually yesterday.
Oh, boy.
I think it's the freshest one, and I think it's just one that I thought was kind of interesting. So I think we'll discuss this one today. But I went on a date yesterday, and the guy and I were talking back and forth, and I said to him, hey, how about like this time at 8 o'clock or whatever? And he was like, oh, you know what, I really can't, I have plans. I was like, oh, okay. He's like, how about next weekend? And I was like, well, I have plans. I'm like, this is going to take too long by the time we see each other. Who knows if we're really interested in each other at this point. So we're chatting, and he says, oh, like the supermarket near my house or whatever, we're joking around, like has a bar. I was like, oh, okay. Like I didn't realize that. And I'm open to checking it out. It's a little different. So
the supermarket bar.
Yeah, supermarket bar. I've never had a date at a supermarket bar.
Cross that off the list.
So I went, so we're joking, and he was like, yeah, I could be there in like this much time because it's so close or whatever. Well, like 20 minutes later, I got a text from him, and he's like, I'm here. I'm like, what? I thought we were joking. And he's like, no, I'm here. I was like, oh, okay. Well, I can be there in like 30 minutes or so, because I have to get ready. I have to do things. I'm not even near my house. Like I had to change. I was in the middle of a bajillion other things at the moment. Like watching my TV shows. No, I'm just kidding. But I was like, oh, okay. So I went over, and I thought I was going to the supermarket that he was told me it was at, but he'd also sent me the address, and I didn't look up the address. I just assumed. So I went to the wrong one, and then I realized it was the wrong one, but thank goodness the two are very close to each other. So I just went to the other one that after I Googled, I was like, oh, it's the other one. So I met him there, and I had said like, oh, by the time I get there, you'll have finished your first drink. So it would be good. You get to just enjoy it. He's like, well, I'm actually waiting outside. He tells me this like 2 minutes before I get there. And I was like, oh, okay, that's nice of you. But I felt bad because you just waited like 30 minutes for me to get there. And
Or
a little bit more.
Yeah.
I assume it would be more than that. Yes, if you
Okay,
went to the
well,
wrong
like
place plus,
30,
okay.
35 minutes or so, 40, let's say 40 minutes. Okay, so he waited for me outside and I was like, oh, that's nice, but awkward a little bit because I just felt it like, I don't know. And I said, because I made the mistake of going to the wrong one, we had joked like, oh, drinks on me, first round on me. I was like, okay, because I felt bad. Like he did text me the right address. I went to the wrong place because I was lazy and didn't look up the right address, right?
Mhm.
So I was like, yeah, totally drinks on me first. I get the first round. So we get to the bar, we're sitting down, we do a couple different samples of what wine we want to get. I pick my wine and then he goes, yeah, I'm going to get like the Pinot Grigio and the Pinot Noir. I was like, what? Like, is this 2 in the first round? I didn't realize we were doing 2 glasses the first
Oh
round,
man.
not just 1 glass on the first round. And it was like cheap wine. It was fine or whatever, but it was just a little awkward that I didn't realize we were doing like 2 glasses on like double fisting it the first round. So then like, I didn't, because it's at like a supermarket, I didn't realize, and it's kind of awkward. So you don't start a tab, you just pay for it like you're checking out. You don't tip, you don't do anything. It's really kind of weird, but interesting. So for a second, I didn't know what to do. So I'm just sitting there and he turns to me, he goes, well, you kind of said you got the first round. I was like, oh, like it's time to
Ew.
pay. I just didn't know it was time to pay because it was really awkward how the whole thing was being done.
Mm.
Plus I was still in shock. I think that he just ordered 2 glasses of wine instead of
Mhm.
1. So plus I was thinking already at this point, I'm like, that means I have to sit through 2 glasses of wine when I was just planning on sitting through 1 glass of wine because I knew right away this is not going to be a thing. So I paid for it. It was fine. So we're sitting there and it just starts turning into a monologue and it's just monologue.
No.
I
No, that's why he needed 2 glasses to not
I
stop
needed 2
talking. That was his fuel, Ariel. Should have ran away at that point.
So I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like I have to sit now through 2 glasses of wine. I don't even want to do another round. So I'm thinking, how can I get out of this? Like, I don't want to hurt his feelings. I don't want to be mean. Like if I'm going to tell somebody, I'm just not feeling it. I'm not going to feel like whatever or something. Right. So I see he has this big watch on and I look at the clock and I'm like, okay, it looks like been 15 minutes or so. So I'm
That's it.
like, how long do I have to sit through? Like an hour.
At least 30 minutes.
Oh, 30
At least
minutes
30
an hour,
minutes.
right?
I would say at least the amount of time he waited for you. So if it was 30 or 40.
Good point. Good point. So I'm waiting and I'm drinking my wine. I finished my glass and I'm like, okay, I can see he's just finishing up his first glass. I'm like, I have a whole nother glass to go. This is going to be a little intense. So I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, okay, well, I could tell him that I just have plans. I have to go to my next plans, which is, I mean, not totally true, but not totally false because like I was going to do something else afterwards anyways. I had just jumped to get into the car to meet him. So I tell him, I'm like, oh, first off, it came up that I said, so you couldn't meet later? Like, what are your other plans? Finally, when I got a word in, he goes, oh, actually, like, I didn't really have plans. I just was feeling really lazy today and just wanted to like stay in. Oh,
Oh man.
okay.
Well, at
So
least he's honest.
he's honest. So I was like, I have plans. I got to go get to dinner. And then I realized that I was like, gosh, it seems like it's been an hour, but it's only been like, I don't think it's the clock's moved. I realized his clock on his watch is not working. So
Wow.
so this whole time I'm like, wow, this time is like stayed still. Well, it really did stay still on his watch.
That's hilarious.
Wow.
So I was like, oh, it's probably been much later than it really has been, obviously. So I look at my phone. I'm like, oh, I think I hear it buzzing, one of those things. I pick up my phone. I'm like, oh, it's been like at least almost an hour. So yeah.
Oh,
so
perfect.
I
You're in the
said to
clear.
myself, oh, you know what? My dinner plans are coming up soon. I should probably just get going because I don't want to miss and be late for them, since I'm already late as it is. And, just I was late for him and whatever. So I got up and I was like, but don't you stay here. I said, you can stay, finish your wine, do your thing. All is good. So, and I just bolted out of there. And then he texted me and he was like, oh, here's my number. I had a great time with you. Like, let's get together more. And I wrote back to him. That's what I said to him. I said, thank you so much for getting together. because I didn't know how to say this. And I was like, I just don't think I felt the spark between us, but I really, wish you all the best and take care. So, because I didn't feel like it was right to ghost him. And
Yeah,
No.
ghosting scene is no fun.
it's not right to do to anybody. And at least if I just said like there was no spark, which there was no spark, like I think that's fair enough.
Maybe there's a spark on his side though.
But you know what? I think it's definitely better than getting ghosted. Like I think I'm on the same page as you, Ariel. Like with the other guy that didn't work out, our conversation went great. It was like the best breakup. I was so like nervous about it for like 2 days. I was like, man, I'm not feeling it. How am I going to break it off? And I just had 4 points, I wanted to say. So one was, hey, I just wanted to say that I'm just not feeling the chemistry between us. 2, I think you're awesome. 3, thank you so much for all the time spent letting me get to know you. And 4, best of luck to you in the future, And I feel like that kind of is a good pie. Quarter pie.
It's a good pie.
Yeah.
I was like, hits all the spots. And, the great response was like, he was like, oh yeah, I'm also on the same page as you. He's like, I think you're really nice, really sweet, but I'm not feeling that vibe. I'm like, okay, great.
Good.
So sometimes, it actually helps the other person too,
Yeah.
if they don't have the courage to, break it off.
Yeah.
No,
I think
perfect.
if you can be honest, I mean, other than my dash out of there, if you can be mostly honest, it's good.
I think I got plans. My watch is ticking. My
Yeah.
phone is ringing. I have to go.
I was actually thinking, I was like, you know what? This kind of makes me feel like I should have like a little personal alarm that goes off after like
That's a
20
great
minutes in the
That's
future.
a great idea.
Like
No, I think
20
you should-
minutes. And then at that point you can snooze it or be like, oh my gosh, sorry, something just came up. I have to leave right now.
Yeah.
Just schedule a phone call. Or honestly, just tell the person like, hey, can we meet up this time? And then let them know at the beginning you've got something going on. And if it ends up being a really good date, you can be like, actually, I lied about that. I really want to spend more time.
No, that's horrible. It's better just to like, oh, my alarm's buzzing off. I was supposed to do something. My bad. Bye.
Well, if it's going really well, then you just plan another date. I think, because you always kind of want to leave the person, if you're having a good time, wanting a little bit more, right?
So if that's the case, 20 minutes or 30 minutes? 30 minutes is like pushing it almost if it's a bad date.
If it's a bad date, then you can leave before then.
Without an alarm?
I don't know. Or you can solve this problem a little bit by like having a screening phone call. Do a phone call with somebody and talk to them for like 10 minutes before and just see if there's anything going on.
But sometimes it's, you get a different vibe when you see somebody in person too.
True.
Yeah,
All right,
actually, I think you're right, Avi. Sorry.
So the 2 questions are before we wrap this up. Question is phone call before a date, like a 10-minute phone call, and setting your alarm. Should we be setting our alarms, I guess, like 30 minutes in?
And then what is a date to you?
And then what is a date to you? These are good questions.
Okay. I think the second question is, did you set an alarm? I don't think you have to. You can do anything. You can look at your phone and there's nothing on the screen and no one's going to call you out on that.
Okay.
Right?
I don't know.
Is someone gonna be like, hey, let me see your phone. I want to check what you just looked at. No, they're not going to say that. And if they do, you're like, no. And then you would leave. So I don't think you need to do that. I think it's just like, pick a time that you want to have happen. You don't need to like have an excuse to leave.
Okay.
Well, I guess the only thing the alarm is it tells you how long you've been there for, right? Like versus like having something happen on your phone.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I think it's also different because you're a guy and you're not a girl. So there's not this expectation of you having to be a nice person. It's like, actually, I really just don't like you. So I'm
you
out.
don't have to be mean. I don't think you have to be mean. You can be like, thank you so much for meeting. I appreciate the drink. It's nice to finally meet you, but I just don't think it's going to work out. And then you leave.
Yeah.
I say that as someone who's not having to do that right now. So it's easy for me to say.
I think Angela and I are going to have to test out these theories and see, how this goes.
So are you doing the alarm or am I doing the alarm? Are we both doing this alarm
I think
thing?
we're both going to do the alarm. I think we should both try it and see how
Are we doing 20 minutes? Okay, I claim. Do you want to do the 20-minute window?
I think I'm going to do a 30-minute window.
30 minutes. Okay, good. All right. I'll do 30 minutes too.
Okay. And then we'll have to clarify, is this a date? Well, sometimes because on the apps, it's clarified as a date. So I don't know.
On the apps, it's a date. In the apps, it's a date.
Okay, so if I
I agree
meet
with Angela.
somebody else.
In
not
real
the
life.
apps, yeah.
In real life,
then
it may
I'll
not
have
be
to
a date.
clarify.
Should I just call it out and just be okay? Sorry, maybe we should wrap it up and then I'll ask a quick question. But this is pertaining to date stuff. So
Okay, ask a question.
okay, I'm just kind of curious if I should like I do want to go see Shooting the Stars, but like I kind of don't want this to be a date scene anymore with this guy. So I'm like debating if I should just like tell him now or tell him after.
You tell them now, you're definitely not going. That's for sure.
Okay, fine, never mind.
I mean, maybe
Avi?
not. I don't know. Maybe it'll be okay. I mean, depends on how he feels about you.
Okay. All right, so we'll wait till after then. Okay, good.
And then
point.
we're gonna let the audience also vote a little bit on 20 minutes alarm or no alarm or a 30-minute alarm and all the other questions that we asked about today. And we'll see
Sounds
what
good.
we'll see what some of the responses are and talk about it next time.
All right. Well,
Awesome.
thanks, Ariel.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
This was
Avi.
so
Bye.
fun.
Thanks.